Welcome to the Jeremy Mullins podcast, where we take a deep dive into different educational topics. I am Jeremy, your host, registered dietitian, strength coach. I am here today with Brenton Abshire, strength coach, mind coach,
cognitive, just coach.
just coach.
Just coach.
We are continuing our education on nutritional readiness from the FM-22, going into our third series of this, starting with body composition. Probably won't get too far in the reading today because I think we'll go off on a lot of sidebar conversations about body fat scans, body fat tests, when to weigh if you're on your weight loss journey, how often to weigh in, what can affect that. So this is going to be a lot of education that isn't necessarily directly from the FM-22, but I think it will spark some conversation between us, which will be good educational points. So sit back, enjoy your ride to work if you're driving to work, or enjoy your walk if you're out knocking out your 45 to 60 minutes of walking today, or skiing since it's been snowing everywhere. We'll see. All right, body composition. The body is comprised of water, protein, minerals, and fat. The two-compartment model of body composition divides the body into fat component and fat-free component. So think of body fat mass, and then muscle tissue, of course, bone, water, etc. The total amount of body fat consists of essential fat and storage fat, fat in the marrow of the bones, heart, lungs, liver, spleen, and kidneys, intestines, muscle. Yes, we have a little body fat or fat inside our muscles, and certainly tissues throughout this central nervous system is called essential fat. Non-essential body fat is called storage fat, which we do want to minimize. So if we look at wellness, that would be the fat that we want to minimize. And as we talk about a lot, we do need some dietary fat inside of our nutrition program, for overall health. Normally, our normal body functions require essential fat. Women have a higher essential fat than men because it includes sex characteristics, fat related to childbearing. And this is why we have different goals for body fat percentages for males versus females. Because I have a lot of females that are new to the wellness journey, and they'll see maybe something's posted online, posted on social media about being 10% body fat. And a female can I get to 10% body fat?
Yes, but
we wouldn't recommend it.
We wouldn't recommend it.
Right. So I think that's something that I want you to know right away. So ladies, I say if we're looking at aesthetics standpoint, like high teens into, mid 20s is a really good performance and aesthetic body fat.
Yes.
So getting too low, once again, could pose some risks in different standpoints. So just understand there is going to be a difference between males and females of what would be the optimal body fat percentage. I'll find where I left off here. Okay. Storage fat is located around the internal organs. Internal storage fat directly beneath the skin as subcutaneous storage fat and provides the body protection, serves as an insulator to conserve body heat. And the relationship between the sub-Q fat and the internal fat might not be the same for all individuals and may fluctuate during your life cycle. So a lot of the individuals I work with lose weight, Brenton, a lot of times they'll say like, hey, I'm cold all the time now, especially if they've carried extra 40, 50, 60 pounds for the last decade. That is one noticeable characteristic that they will get once they lose weight.
Yep. And I think that you bring up a good point. I mean, we've already talked about the gender specific piece of that, but also just where you live, right? Like it's colder now, yep, even here in New Orleans, but back in Kentucky, it's single digits right now. It's probably okay if you had a couple extra pounds of fat right now for that insulation, but let's take that to a flip side. You live in Alaska or somewhere else where it's a colder, you probably want to carry a little bit more excess fat because you need that for just that free storage.
Yes.
Right?
And I think that's a great point. We don't look at a lot of times, or I don't educate on, don't look at, because a lot of times it is based on decreasing body fat and performance, not necessarily surviving. Right. So in, harsher environments, that would be something to take in consideration. And I guess you could break it down, look at a lot of these survival shows that's out there. Most of them, the participants will gain weight going into the show for multiple different reasons, from that aspect. Right. So a little bit of background there just on body composition as we slide into going over some of the apparatuses or tools that's out there to test body fat next. So lean body mass represents the weight of your muscles, your bones, your ligaments, your tendons, and your internal organs. That's all classified as lean body mass. Lean body mass differs from fat-free mass, known as FFM. Since there is some essential fat in bone marrow of your bones and internal organs, the lean body mass includes a small percentage of essential fat. So that's something to keep in mind just from the standpoint of knowledge. However, with a two-component model of body composition, these sources of essential fat are estimated and subtracted from the total body weight to obtain fat-free mass. Practical methods of assessing body fat composition, such as skin fold thickness or caliper test, bioimpedance analysis, which for a lot of people understand that, known as the in-body, air displacement, and hydrostatic weighing or underwater weighing, as most people would know that one, are based on the two-component method, lean body mass and fat-free mass. The three-component model of body composition includes a third component where the fat-free mass is further divided into lean tissue mass and bone mineral content. This is done with a dual energy X-ray observatory, which is known as the DEXA scan. It is an example of a three-component model of body composition. Soldiers should consult with a registered dietitian or wellness center for assistance with body composition assessments, interpretation of results. Okay. I am a big fan of the DEXA scan and recently have been working with a local site here, DEXA in Tallahassee, I guess we're in New Orleans right now. But if you do have a DEXA near you, you can go online, look up DEXA. Look for those options. They're not in every state, but they are in a lot of states within 2 or 3 hour drive of most people, and there's more coming. But you can also just look for DEXA body fat scan in your area to see any local hospitals do it or clinics do it. It would be the one that I would tell most people, like, I feel is the most accurate with all the changing circumstances. Now, you can still, if you drink a gallon of water before you get on the DEXA scan, it can skew the numbers. But as far as having the minimal standard deviation of fluctuations and giving you the most accurate and health numbers, I like the DEXA scan, because the DEXA scan will also give you your T-score for your bone density. So you can know where you're at from a bone density standpoint, which for like younger athletes, this is important to me because, are they coming into, a collegiate setting, having low bone density scores, which could increase risk for fractures. Or if this is a young person going into the military, you have an increased risk of fractures. So you can see this with the DEXA scan. You won't be able to get this with a in-body or something like that. But most of the time we are just tracking body fat percentages.
Correct. And I think that an additional resource for that as well is going to be, we talked about college athletes, is your local colleges, especially your bigger universities, are going to have DEXA or DEXA scans inside of their kinesiology, exercise, physiology domains. And if you're in those programs, typically you're probably going to be asked to do it at some point in time, which is fun. Or you take the University of Kentucky, I believe, nobody quote me on this, full disclosure.
Yeah.
But I believe if you're a student there, you can, if you're not inside that program, you're not able to do it, but you want to do a scan, I think it's just $50. You just go on, you schedule it.
Yeah.
Inside of that, and I'm sure multiple universities probably do something similar to.
Well, I think most universities are looking for, and I hate to say it, test subjects, right?
Research,
but they're looking for participants, yes, for the grad students, to do these scans on. So that's another great resource and a good point to look at. And something I'll take away, do what you have available, right? Because the DEXA scans could range anywhere from, as Brenton was mentioning, $50 up to $150 per session, depending on what is your area, where do you live at, that type of stuff. But if you could get a DEXA scan done your first year on your journey every 3 months, it gives so much information. And I was blessed that when I worked with Dr. Stickler in West Virginia, when I first kind of got out of school and started cutting my teeth in the wellness space, we had a DEXA scan in the office. And this was kind of where I first initiated like my protein intake for individuals. So going back 15 years, I would generally use about 125 to 150 grams of protein as a starting point for females, generic starting point. Guys anywhere between 175 and 200. And the reason I did this, my first 10 patients that I worked with, really in my career, as far as in that setting, put them on the DEXA scan, they all lost muscle tissue. Every single one of them lost muscle tissue because the dietitian that was there at the time had made the diets up based on the standard American Association ADA, and it was like 67 grams of protein was average. And these were bariatric clients. These were clients that had 100 pounds to lose. So when you have 100 pounds to lose, one positive benefit is you've got quite a bit of muscle tissue, especially in your lower body.
Yes.
Because
you're carrying that excess.
You're carrying that weight around. You build up the muscle tissue in order to carry that weight around. But all those clients lost muscle tissue. And right away, that kind of clicked, like, I need to look at having a higher protein intake in fat loss clients to maintain muscle tissue. And that's where originally, I started with those numbers. And of course, in kind of here the last 5 to 8 years, learning that, okay, hey, 1 gram of protein per goal body weight is a starting point, but that generally will increase that as the client gets used to consuming protein, from the benefits of increasing caloric expenditure through the thermic effect to decreasing hunger, but also raising calories up, so that when someone's in a reduced caloric diet, they're not in too low of a reduced caloric diet that the metabolism slows. So that's the reason I like to go even higher now on the protein intake when I have people that are getting to what I like to call that final product.
I like it.
A couple other takeaways. Hey, no matter what testing you're doing, whether it's in body, whether you have a scale at home to do it, whether you're doing tape measurements, try to do it under the same circumstances. And what I mean by that, if you're doing this test once a week, once every month, make sure that everything that you can control is the same. Maybe the same dinner, the same routine at night, not working out, having maybe just the same drink before you go, or no completely fasting before you do the test. The more controllables that you keep the same, the less the standard deviation is going to be on these tests to give you a more accurate reading. Okay, because can't tell you how many times I've had someone go do like one of the in-body scans at a supplement company or a supplement store, and they come back to me a week later and they're like, Jeremy, I gained 4 pounds of muscle. You did not gain 4 pounds of muscle in a week.
That'd be really cool if they did.
I would love to be able to put 4 pounds of muscle on someone in a week, right? That's just that change in the water status, and it just skews the number. So it's better to watch the trend, even if you're using a DEXA scan to assess your body fat percentage.
One, I think you bring up a good point, especially with resources, is you're paying the money already. So like you're going to get extra out of the benefits of knowing what exactly is happening. You can keep that habit or that routine the same before you could do it.
And I think a lot of us are numbers people. Like, we enjoy seeing the numbers, and this also can help when you're looking at your body fat percentage, just the scale, because the scale doesn't always tell a full story in your progression of your wellness. So just some things to keep in mind, from that aspect. We'll touch a little bit more on how the Army body fat has changed with the measurements in here in just a second. Okay. Moving on, optimal lean body mass to fat-free mass ratio for soldiers differ depending upon the primary and secondary mission roles. Dietitians consider chronic disease, individual illness and injury patterns, and body composition history, ethnicity, which kind of goes with what you're talking about, like, where do you live, right? So if we're in the National Guard in Alaska, there might be a higher body fat percentage than, say, somewhere else. And mission-specific mission requirements that determine the most effective tasks of body composition. So if we test some Rangers before they go to or test some soldiers before they go to Ranger school, and then test those Rangers after Ranger school, so what did they?
They passed.
Yeah, they passed. So therefore, the Rangers, they are generally, unfortunately, lose a lot of weight during the process just because of the way that training is. So that would be, once again, if you did a test on body fat percentages before and after, you're going to have totally different numbers from that aspect. Soldiers should be reminded that physical performance cannot be accurately predicted solely based on body weight and composition. And what I love about that is we have, now moved to, if you score a certain score on our PT test within the Army, body fat doesn't matter.
Nope.
And I like that,
I mean, it helps some of your bigger athletes that are good athletes, and we need them inside of the ranks and things, but they're getting nixed just because they carry some excess fat.
Right.
Or maybe a lot of muscle tissue.
Yes. And there's some, data out, and I've talked to this multiple times about, like, you can, and I'm not advocating for someone to be a smoker, but you can smoke and be active and live longer than someone that's non-active.
Yes. And
the same way, you can carry a little bit extra body fat and be active, and once again, live longer than someone who carries less body fat that's not active. So, the activity level plays a big role in our long-term health, right? Now, once again, I would rather you be within a good body fat percentage, but it doesn't mean you have to look and be ripped all to pieces to be fit, to have high performance, and to live an optimal healthy life.
And I think the second point is even more, is just that optimal healthy life, right? Like,
yes.
Can you do the bare minimum for a long time, and long time being the rest of your life?
100%. Following a healthy eating pattern, consuming the number of servings of carbohydrate, proteins, and fats, there's those macros again, from food groups to meet individual caloric need, supports a healthy body fat composition. Okay, as the listeners have learned, and I'll preach over and over, guys, it is a protein and calorie gain. Get the correct amount of protein that you need to optimize muscle tissue, maintain muscle tissue, and then be in a caloric deficit if you're trying to lose weight, be in a caloric balance if you're maintaining weight, and of course, be in a caloric surplus if you're going to gain weight. to perform optimally in physical tasks requiring proper nutrition combined with physical training. So that's, kind of the initial body composition knowledge and education coming out of this. Okay. And I think, especially for someone who is new to resistance training, having a DEXA scan or testing body fat, is one of those things that we really want to do, because what's going to happen is when you first are introduced to resistance training, you're going to gain a lot of muscle within those first 2 years, right? Just putting a beginner's gains, I'm going to say, as a generic term. So you're going to gain a lot of that muscle tissue those first 2 years of lifting. And if we're losing some body fat and gaining muscle tissue during that time, the scale is not going to change that much. So what I'll have a lot of my clients do is look back at photos, especially if they've done a great fat loss. So they've lost 40, 60 pounds, 100 pounds. Then they start gaining the weight back. I will compare, a 170 number currently to a 170 number as far as body weight goes on their journey of fat loss, and they'll look at the difference between the photos.
They're going to be leaner.
They're going to be leaner. Okay. Just the simple fact that, like, I'm probably, I had my body fat tested. I'm 16% body fat, but I'm also pushing 215. But if I go back and look at photos that I was 215 in high school versus 215 now, that's a totally different body composition.
Yes.
Or if I look back to when I was 15% body, 170 pounds, right? I probably look better now, but as far as the muscle than I did that, because once again, you're looking at body fat percentage versus just a number on the scale. All right. Body mass index.
It's going to be a fun one.
Going to be a fun one. I just want to say ahead of time, BMI, a lot of people some people still use it. It is a good measurement for broad groups to get information.
And I think I would up that to it's a predictor.
Yes.
It's a good use for a predictor for
the masses. 100%.
And especially in a culture where we have lots of diseases, BMI is a great indicator if you're going to get sick later on in life.
Yeah. So, but once again, for specialty group or for athletes and those that are carrying more muscle tissue, it can be an skewed number. Okay. So body mass index, BMI, is a population screening measurement commonly used to rapidly assess health and classify individuals as underweight, normal, overweight, or obese. So I try to highlight some numbers there. Once again, population screening for use for rapid assessment. I would love to say, let's get a DEXA scan on every single person to get an accurate body fat percentage so we know what's going on. That would just not be feasible, whether we're talking about the National Guard population, whether we're talking about online training population, or if we're talking about the world population. It'd be cool.
And I guess in times, real quick, you're talking minutes. We're able to get this BMI from each individual taking this, where a DEXA, yes, you're going 20, you're pushing potentially 20 minutes, depending on
and then,
which one you got.
And then once again, no cost for BMI. Because BMI is just weight in kilograms divided by height in meters squared equals kilograms/meters squared. That is your BMI.
So however fast you can hop on the scale. And
good point. I guess you do have to have a scale.
Got to have a scale.
So I was going to say it didn't cost anything, but yes, you got to have a scale.
Yes, but bare minimum. So how fast can you do the equation after you hop on the scale is really what it comes down to.
Reference standards for developing the United States population by race and gender so that individuals at a risk of obesity can be easily identified. However, the reference value of the U.S. population does not always apply to special populations, such as soldiers who may have a higher BMI but acceptable body fat composition. BMI is a screening tool that just assesses height versus weight ratio, but does not indicate body composition. Leaders may refer to the soldier to registered dietitian or the Army Wellness Center for more accurate body composition analysis to track progress. Okay, so it's neat that the BMI is in here, but understand that once again, it would be body fat composition that we would want to look at from that perspective. Like my BMI, I don't know where I would be. I haven't done a BMI, but I can guarantee I'm in the overweight category.
I'm definitely in the overweight.
I don't know if I'd be in the obese. I know I'm in the overweight. Maybe I am in the obese.
You're shorter and weigh more.
I am. Yes. I could be pushing it. I'm getting, as I get older, I think I'm getting shorter too. So joys of getting some age. All right. Weight loss. And this is important. So I want, the listeners to understand, here is sometimes the only reference that maybe a soldier has that's trying to help someone in their unit when they don't have access to, someone like me as a dietitian. And the goal of the podcast is just to educate, right? So if you're listening to this and you're a soldier in the National Guard and you're trying to help someone inside of your unit, listen, you can reach out to me. I might not be, in your state as far as the quote dietitian in your state, but I would definitely help out. That is my goal. That is my mission. So weight loss for some soldiers, injury, stress, lack of time, frequent travel, and other reasons might contribute to higher than optimal weight. And that's for everybody. Once again, I'm just reading from our FM-02, but really those are the same problems that face a lot of our soldiers when it comes to wellness is the same obstacles that I would say civilians have, right? They need to determine what might be contributing to body composition higher in body fat. It's important to evaluate the amount of food and caloric containing beverages consumed each day to reduce the total number of calories per day to reduce body fat. It takes dedication to make adjustments to eating habits. I love the fact that they said habits here. Portion size, food choices, physical activity, sleep hygiene, and stress management. And I love that. I love the fact that there are multiple things in there that do affect our health, our weight, and of course, our body fat percentage, okay? Sleep hygiene, stress management, and physical activity. Nutrition goals should be realistic, and weight loss does not have to happen overnight. Soldiers are generally sustain a weight loss of half a pound to 1 pound of body fat per week. To prevent lean muscle mass and nutrient deficiencies, women should consume no less than 1,200 calories, and men should consume no less than 1,500 calories per day. And this is one of those I highlighted, and really this right here, this one statement I just said, to prevent lean muscle mass and nutrient deficiencies, women should consume no less than 1,200 calories per day. Men should consume no less than 1,500 calories a day. That was the first thing I highlighted that wanted me to do this education. Mm-hmm. And I think I called you when I said, I'm like, that is an absolute statement that while on the surface is good, isn't 100% correct.
And it's not, because it depends.
It depends.
However, I think it's a great broad stroke to combat some of the things that are out there.
Yes, because unfortunately, you see a lot of females put on 1,000 calories or less, right? Mm-hmm. But one thing I want to note here, to prevent lean muscle loss, it is about consuming the correct amount of protein needed, not calories. Because I would argue that if a gentleman consumed 1,500 calories from just carbohydrate and fat, they would still lose muscle tissue. You could eat 2,000 calories a day if it's coming from carbs and fat with no protein, and you burn 2,500 calories a day, 1,000 calories a day, you will lose muscle tissue. So if you don't consume the right amount of protein, you're going to lose muscle tissue outside of calories. And then I would argue that if a guy ate 1,500 calories that was primarily protein with just enough essential fat, okay, you don't theoretically need carbohydrates, right? You can make your own blood glucose via gluconeogenesis. Not saying you'll feel good. I'm not saying your energy will be good.
And also not short-term either.
Correct. This is just a hypothetical in me educating, right? That they won't lose muscle tissue either because you're providing essential fatty acids to maintain health. You can make your own glucose via gluconeogenesis, and you're consuming enough protein to maintain muscle tissue. Those are just some things to think about. The other one is, I might have a certain type of female less than 1,200 calories a day.
How much do they weigh?
How tall are they?
There's a lot of demographics.
What do they do for a living? What if we have a female that is 4'11" and she's 120 pounds, but she really needs to weigh 100?
And she's sedentary.
She has a desk job. I would be okay with her eating 1,000 calories a day, right? So once again, great, as you said, great broad statement to not have people under eating. But there's a lot more that goes into it than just say, hey, 1,500 calories, that's the lowest that you want to go. Okay.
So I think let's caveat to that too, because I mean, typically in most of its readings, we heard it say soldiers. This is the one statement that it did not say soldiers. It said men or males and females, men and women, yep. Right? So now we're talking general public. We're not talking soldiers in general. We're talking the masses at this point, yep. Out of that statement, where this is the one thing that I think they probably did some good studies on. It was like, hey, we know that people are under eating.
Yes.
Let's at least make sure that standpoint doesn't happen. And hopefully in the previous chapter, when we talked about protein, they learned something.
Yes.
And now we've added to it, right? Yep. I'm going to say that the Army does a lot of good things. This is one of those things that I would say is probably very good with periodization and linear pieces. And it's a great thing that we're talking about it.
100%. And like I said, that was the one sentence in this entire, book that made me say, hey, I want to educate on my experience of this as a strength coach, as a dietitian, as a wellness coach, to bring more knowledge to some of these just absolute statements.
Yep.
Right.
But I do think that even the statement before, and I know we kind of overlooked it, but that half pound to a pound per week,
Yeah.
that's been around for a while.
Right.
Like that, I don't think that that's changed. And I think that that's still a solid number to today.
And it could be more. It could be.
Could you do more? Well, I mean, we
100%.
talked about it, men and women.
Yep.
If I decided to dial everything in, and my wife hates it all the time, when I dial it in, I might lose 3-4 pounds in a week.
Yeah. And so I would argue with this too. Like, I think the half a pound to a pound per week came from research of people who do maintain their weight loss longer. So when you lose faster, generally you're doing things that are not sustainable.
Yes.
Right? Therefore, you don't maintain the habits. Okay.
And I'll use myself an example. I'm sitting at probably 2,400 calories, 220 grams of protein, and everything else just sits there, right?
Yeah.
And I'm exercising efficiently. I'm doing my strength training, my walking, getting some intensity in there, and I'm doing everything. Sleep is on point.
Yeah.
Everything is perfect, right? When that happens. However, like you said, it's not sustainable.
Yep.
I'm not going to lose 3 to 4 pounds every week. It's usually just that first week. That first week is 3 to 4 pounds. And then after that, if I continue with the habits, because we already talked about habits, then it goes back to that half a pound to 1 pound per week.
And most of the time, you got to look at too, how much does someone have to lose? So when I take into consideration, like a lot of the people I've worked with that lost 80 to 100 pounds in a year, a lot of that initial loss is inflammation.
Yep.
Inflammation and water weight. So if you say, okay, there's 10 pounds of that on a 100-pound individual, well, now there's 90 pounds left to go. Okay. And then 90 pounds in 51 weeks, right? Because we were saying the first week we lost some inflammation. If you did, that's less than 2 pounds a week. Well, they have 100 pounds to lose. So of course you can lose a little faster in the beginning because you just have more to lose. So even greater and really good changes, 100 pounds in a year is still less than 2 pounds a week. So, just keep that in mind. If you're losing a half a pound of body fat a week on average, that is good.
That's optimal.
That's optimal. That is good. Don't stress that you need to lose more than that. So we got some tips here, and then we got weight gain, and then we'll wrap up this session today. So soldiers using the following tips to achieve weight loss. Track food intake with daily food log. I'm a big that. You should do it. You should do it inside the First Form app. And you should add me as your advisor, jeremy@firstform.com. I know, shameless plug, got you there. But I think that people should track their food. I do not think that people need to track their food 365 days a year for the rest of their life. That is my opinion of how you should track your food to learn what works for you. Okay. You then should track food into maintenance. And then after that, you should periodically track to keep yourself on point.
One, I think you bring up a good point is you become, humans are habitual animals.
Yep.
Right?
Creatures of habit.
Once you've learned what portion control looks like for you and you know what it is, we're pretty good at guessing about what the protein, carbs, and fats are, especially if you're tracking it and you realize it and you start educating yourself and you're following what Jeremy's telling you. After you do it so many times, you're going to be pretty close. Within 10%, you're going to be able to guess what it is, and if you've done more, done less, or need more.
And that's why you should track your bad days too, so you know what's in there, right? Oh, I don't eat that bad because you don't track the bad days. And they're 5,000, 6,000 calories.
Well, and I think that those are great. Every now and then, you need those every now and then. We're humans. You want to experience, but sometimes
that's how I learned to only eat 2 pieces of pizza. Because early days of quote dieting or being on, didn't have pizza, then you had pizza, you didn't eat the whole thing because you had it, right?
Yep.
And I preached not to do that because it's not right. Like, it was a mindset I had. Change that over the years. I teach for you to change that. And now, like, if I hadn't tracked that pizza and understand that there's 1,500 calories in this pizza, versus hey, there's 500 calories in 2 slices. I can make that work.
Yep.
Okay. Focus on eating foods that can say nutrient-rich, lean sources of protein, right? So make sure we're hitting optimal protein. Choose low-calorie beverages, 100%. Drink more water. Don't drink your calories. Be mindful of hunger and fullness cues. Keep food log to be aware of number of calories, and I would add in amount of protein in per day. Stay hydrated. So there's just some tips there. Had a little bit more in that, but just kind of keeping this for time's sake, the highlights. Okay. Weight gain. Combat missions and training require muscle strength and endurance to optimize performance and prevent neuromuscular skeletal injury while attempting to gain weight. Soldiers need to combine an appropriate strength training program with a well-planned nutrition strategy. The most effective method to increase muscle mass is encouraged a positive energy balance. For example, consuming more calories than you need to maintain weight. Theoretically, consuming additional 250 to 500 calories a day with typical requirements would result in a gain of 1/2 to 1 pound a week. So same thing on the flip side. It wants to be a slow increase on the scale, not a big increase. Many soldiers may believe more protein is the best way to gain weight. Protein requirements are higher in reduced caloric diets. I'll say that again. Protein requirements are higher in reduced caloric diets. For example, if I have a 300-pound client trying to get to 200, the closer I get them to being 10% body fat and 200 pounds, I might have worked their protein up to 300 grams. That same client that is 200 grams or 200 pounds that wants to gain weight just needs the 1 gram of protein per target body weight or slightly higher.
Well, I think I'm going to back you up to that last paragraph in regards to injuries. So this goes for both sides of weight loss and weight gain. There's a huge predictor, and even at the conference today, we were talking about innovations with hip and growing injury with athletes in specific, collegiate athletes and tactical athletes, and what happens whenever you ramp up their training cycles. In the previous piece of weight loss, it says that physical training is part of it. However, you can't go run the marathon on day 2 of a training cycle, right? Like you could,
you don't feel very
and
well.
people do that. However, you're at a higher risk for injury at that point, right? It's no different with weight gain. Some people may want to do 2 or 3 days of heavy lifts and hypertrophy and other things to gain this extra muscle, and that may be great in short term, but long term you're probably going to hurt yourself. And I think it goes with both weight loss and weight gain. You got to have a good periodization of the plan, and that'll help you out with whichever way you're going, up or down on the scale.
Awesome. Backing up, many soldiers believe more protein is best and a way to gain weight, when in fact, eating more protein than established recommendations may not provide any additional benefit, especially if they're a hard gainer. Consuming more protein when it decreases hunger might not be beneficial. It's not going to hurt to have more protein as long as they're getting in the other calories with the protein, with the carbohydrate and the fat. To encourage lean body mass growth, protein consumption should be between 1.2 to 2 grams per kilogram, which is right below that 1 gram per target body weight. So I like 1 gram per target body weight or slightly higher as my recommendation that I've found works best. Soldiers using following tips help add more calories to their eating plan. Eat frequently. Pretty self-explanatory. Eat more, okay? Especially if you get full off larger meals, break them into smaller meals throughout the day. Consume protein-rich foods, best served with protein with whole foods such as lean poultry, fish, beans, nuts, eggs, and dairy. Try smoothies. I really like this one. Okay, so smoothies and healthy fat, the last 2 here. This is the easiest way to add calories to your diet. This is why we generally, for weight loss clients and anyone in a reduced caloric state, we don't recommend, to drink your calories, okay, or to add a lot of healthy fat, because as you guys know, if you haven't looked at what 2 tablespoons of peanut butter is, like truly a serving size of it, it's not that much, okay? It is not that much. I know I like peanut butter. I know I eat a lot of peanut butter, but I'm just telling you, it is not a lot. So by adding healthy fats, adding some olive oil, some grass-fed butter to your veggies, to your baked potato, that's an easy way to increase calories if you're looking to gain weight without substantially adding more food. And then smoothies with that. I usually have especially some of the collegiate basketball players I've worked with recently, trying to have them gain weight, maintain weight, to do a protein shake at night. But it's not just a protein shake. It's protein based, with a scoop of protein or 2, but then it's made with whole milk, peanut butter, Greek yogurt, anything to get a bunch of calories in. And a lot of those guys are doing 1,000 calories for bed, because these are 18, 19-year-olds that are just burning and mowing through the calories. They're busy with class, practice, all that. So they need to work those calories in.
Well, I think you bring a great point. It depends on, again, it goes back to your lifestyle and what you're doing. Are you training at a high intensity where you're going to need some more calories and protein just to fuel you?
Awesome, guys. So we always appreciate you listening to the podcast. Hope you're enjoying the series on nutritional readiness from the FM-22. We will go into event fueling, pre and post nutrition in the next session. Hope you guys have a great day.